Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to be checking out GameNative so we can get our Steam library onto our AYN Thor and play those games natively. Let's dive in. So there are a couple of ways to do this, but the one we're going to be focusing on today is GameNative. And the reason for this is of all the applications that currently emulate PC on the AYN Thor and other Android devices, I found GameNative to be the most well-maintained, the most feature-rich, and also the most user-friendly. So we'll head over to Obtainium, and then if we head down, we'll just drop our emulators and front ends. You can't go wrong with GameNative, so we'll install that. So whilst we're here, as well as GameNative, we're also going to get an app called EmuReady Lite, and this is again by Productivity. Now what this is it's essentially a community-based forum almost, where you can look at what games are compatible, because with a lot of PC emulation, manage your expectations. Not every game is going to run flawlessly, some will not even run at all. But with EmuReady, we can look at what is compatible and what features and settings that people have enabled in order to get those games to boot, or reports of if they've not even been able to boot games at all, so you don't waste time downloading them. So we'll install this as well, and I'll talk you through how that works shortly. So for GameNative, we're going to boot it up. We'll allow notifications, and then you can just connect to this with your Steam username and password or your Steam card QR code. You can also sign in with your Epic account, your GOG account, your Amazon account. So I've signed in with my Steam account, and you can see it's just loading my games library. It can take a moment to pull through everything, so we'll just give it a second to catch up. And here is GameNative. So if we can see my Steam library, you can see there's a lot of these that say compatible or unknown. However, even if something says compatible, it doesn't necessarily mean it will be playable. They are two very different categories in my eyes. For example, Darkest Dungeon, I wasn't able to get running at all, even though it does say it's compatible. So before we start downloading a game, if we look at our settings by pressing our start button, and we just go to settings. Now we're in the settings, you can set some defaults. So all I do for this is you can leave auto apply known config on, which means that if there is a known configuration for that game, it will automatically flip to it. So you also want to enable this if you're using a front end. So I will be covering this again when we look at front end synchronization. But if you press this, so you want to set a Steam folder. So if we go to our ROMs folder and we create a Steam folder, anytime we download a game, we'll be able to see it automatically in our front end, because what it'll do is it'll create the Steam shortcut and it'll drop it into the folder for us. You can also do the same for custom games if you choose to use custom games. So I tend to make a Windows folder for this, just to keep my Windows games and my Steam games separate. So I'd also advise setting the speed to blazing, as it can take quite a while to download some games, obviously depending on the size of that game. And if you want to, you can write the games to external storage, so you can put them on your SD card. However, SD card speed is slower than the internal device speed. So if you've got the internal storage, then I'd save the PC games on here. But do be aware that that can be a potential issue. So I'm just going to leave them as is. So now let's grab a game. So I've tried quite a few games on this, and some of them have worked brilliantly and some of them haven't booted at all, and everything in between. But just to demonstrate a game that works brilliantly, we're going to have a look at Megabonk. So when you select a game to download, you're going to get this screen, so we're going to install it first. We're going to have to give it the permissions to do so, obviously, and then we'll hit install. So you can see it's downloading now. This can take some time depending all on both your internet speed, and this routes to Steam through a bunch of APIs, and sometimes the servers can be a bit hit, so it's best to just let it do one game at a time rather than trying to queue up loads, in my experience. Obviously, this game being 170 meg, being quite a small game, then we don't have to worry too much about that because it will be done shortly. So it's also going to synchronize some of your save data. So if you have Steam cloud saves, it will pull through the latest version of them as well. So let's dive in. So it'll download the Proton layer that it needs to. If you've ever used a Steam Deck or anything like that, then you'll be familiar with this kind of stuff. So the first time you boot a game, it's going to have to download some compatibility features and compatibility layers. That's what Proton is. So give it a moment to do so, and then it should hopefully boot into the game. So I have found that sometimes you can also get these sync errors. So the easiest way around these is if we press OK. So if you swipe down and just disable your Wi-Fi for a moment, and then we play, you'll get this little notification you've been disconnected from Steam, but because it can't sync the cloud save, it will force it to boot into the game. And then once you're in the game, you can re-enable your internet. A little bit annoying, hopefully something that they can fix in a future update. So I've booted into the game and it's running pretty flawlessly. I've got a pretty standard, it hovers around 60 to 70 FPS. Temperature wise is good, I'm on high performance mode, and I am also testing Pulse, which is a underclocking app. So this is underclocked and it's still running pretty well. So if we press our back button, then whilst you're in game, you can set your FPS limiter, which I advise you do. You can change what metrics are shown. I don't really need to see any of those personally. You can customize that to your heart's content. You can also enable things like FSR for upscaling, but do be aware that this will have a performance impact. So if we quit out of the game by pressing this little red exit button, what you can do is, and I advise you do this anytime you play a game just to help other people out, the game ran fine, and yeah, we'll submit that. So obviously I won't be able to submit it because I'm still disconnected from the internet. So what if you want to change some of those settings? So if you go back to your game and press this little settings cog, you can see this option to edit the container. But whilst we're here, if you come down and you press use known config, what it'll do is it will download a configuration for that specific game where people have reported it working. But we can edit the container and you can change your AYN version in here. If you see from EmuReady that something works a bit different, you can also change your graphics drivers. So that's the turnip driver I'm using currently, which has worked really well. You can customize any of this stuff, your controller. If you prefer to use different controller mappings, then you can customize all of these to your heart's content. So now let's have a look at how to find out if your game is compatible. So if we back out of this and we go over to EmuReady, this is a game compatibility database, so we can just go through our little setup wizard. It explains what it is, how it works. We'll just continue as guests for now, but I do advise making an account, because if you make an account, you can set your device and it'll only show you profiles for that device. So if we go to reports, you can set a filter. You can select perfect on Snapdragon, for example, or you can go to devices, and you can look for your AYN Thor Max, and you can apply that, and we can see all the games that are claimed to run perfectly. So this even covers things like Thor, 3DS, PSP. You've got GameNative ones there, so you can filter all these out as well if you want to change it to only GameNative. We can do that. So we can see what games apparently run perfectly. And also you can search for a specific game. So for example, if I search for Darkest Dungeon, because that was the one I was having issues getting running when I first tried it a while ago. So there's no reports yet, so this is why I encourage you. So if I back out, so it says it runs great, which I am skeptical of. But if we open one up, when we scroll down here, you can see they've used a Bionic container, they've used that version of AYN, that's their resolution. So most of this does seem to be pretty similar. So they've got the kimchi turnip driver there. So this is all very helpful stuff. Or just to know that's Darkest Dungeon 2, whereas I tried Darkest Dungeon 1. So this only has an Eden profile, so I know I can run the Switch version if I want to, but that's not something. I wanted to run the PC version so I could get my Steam achievements, but what are you going to do? So just finally, because we set up our auto save sync, if we press our settings, if you want to do this manually, you can just press this export for front end, and it will ask you where you want to save it. But you can see that for some reason it's done it in the Windows folder, but you can see it's got that Megabonk PC game, whereas I wanted it to do it to my Steam folder. It's also done one in there as well. So it does seem to do both, so that's probably a bug, or maybe it's something you can chop and change however you like. This just makes it very easy for when you're using front ends. Although for some front ends, you will have to rescan the library. I know for things like Cocoon, it won't detect any new games until you tell it to rescan. So hopefully there'll be some sort of auto scan update for those front ends. This is a very simple way to auto load your PC games, your Steam games, into your front end. So this is just for Steam games, GOG games, Epic Games, Amazon games. For custom games, what you have to do is you basically need to get the game files in a folder so you can install them on a PC. Grab that folder, transfer it across to your device, and if you click Add Custom Game, you just point it at the folder. So I won't be doing that in this video. I'll be covering that in a future video at some point, but for now, the easiest way to get PC games running on your AYN Thor is by GameNative. And there we are, that is running Steam games on your AYN Thor with GameNative. If this video helped you out, then I would always appreciate a like and a subscribe. If you've got any questions, comments or feedback, please drop a comment below and I'll be sure to respond. I'm very active in the comments on all my videos as much as I can be. Please keep supporting the channel because there are many more videos about the AYN Thor. There'll be some about the AYN Odin and other retro handheld devices coming in the coming months. So stay tuned and I'll see you next time.